What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another edition of the Not Dead podcast. I am your host, Salvomania, and my co-host with me is Mr. Jonathan Jones. Jonathan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Hey, man, what's up, bud?
Hey, so last week we covered the year 1993, which was an important year because it was the year I was born. It was also the year of the debut of Monday Night Raw and WrestleMania 9 we reviewed as well. And today we're going to review the year 1997, which was another important year for me because 1997 was the year I started watching professional wrestling.
There you go.
So two big years back to back for you. Before we get started, I want to say if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and when you hit the subscribe button, please, would you hit the notification bell so you get notified when we upload new content. I upload new content every single week. And if you don't hit that subscribe button, Jonathan, remind them what happens.
Stink
face city, bitch. Yes, like I said, we're gonna discuss the year 1997, and I think there's no better time to start than Survivor Series 1997. Of course, Survivor Series 2021 just happened this past weekend. Boy, I sound kind of weak tonight. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
My voice sounds funny to me for some reason. But yeah, like I said, 1997 Survivor Series, which was, as you can see on the screen here, it's the Montreal Screwjob, and I think that's probably the best way to start out. So, let's talk about the Montreal Screwjob. For those of you who don't know, it was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, and for the WWF Championship. And Bret was on his way out, and Shawn was a prick, shall we say?
Oh, he was a prick times 10. If you ask Jim Cornette, he was a worthless piece of shit that entire
time. And they had a match at Survivor Series for the WWF Championship. Shawn locked Bret into Bret's finish with a sharpshooter, and Bret did not tap out. But Earl Hebner, the referee, he signaled for the bell to ring for the match to end. So much around this story. Where do you want to start, Jonathan?
Well, of course, this was an episode of Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh, yeah.
It's an incident that has been remembered for over 20 years. I mean, many people have, talk about the screw job and where, what happened to Bret after that, what happened to Shawn after that. It was a big deal, and a lot of people were trying to figure out, was it a shoot? Was it a contrived thing by Vince?
Who knew? Who didn't
was
know?
Shawn in on it?
And I should have said to start, we're covering the year 1997. This year was so pivotal in the world of professional wrestling because not only did you have this Montreal Screwjob happen, but you also had the rise of the NWO, which we'll get into. You had the rise. You had the comeback of Sting, the Crow Sting. ECW was up and running. There was a lot of stuff that happened in all three promotions.
No, it was a big year for wrestling.
Mm-hmm. It was one of its bigger years, I would say. The start of the Attitude Era. I mean, but yeah. So I guess this topic has been done to death. So if you want a real in-depth analysis, please go watch the Montreal Screwjob documentary on WWE Network. Go listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast. He does a whole episode on this. Go listen to Jim Cornette because he's done several podcasts on this. Do not read the Wrestling Observer, whatever you do.
No.
Don't give them any credit.
No, don't listen to Dave Meltzer. But of all of them, listen to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Corny will tell you, he pretty much will tell you the truth. Now, Bruce Pritchard is a Vince dude, so he's only going to give you one side of what actually happened, and Corny will tell you legitimately what went on.
Yeah.
How Corny was a creative at that time, and they they supposedly had a finish, but they were going to have a closed door meeting or something before that. But apparently, Triple H, Vince, and Shawn had met prior to that, without Brett knowing. So, to me, that's when the screw job was on. I think Vince McMahon was pissed that Brett was leaving for WCW. I think all of that is that's my mind thinking.
Well, I think you're right. I think Vince was pissed about Brett leaving for WCW, but let's not forget, Vince did say he couldn't afford to pay Brett anymore.
Right.
But
they'll also will say, you had a guy like Shawn Michaels at the time, and we mentioned, the guy was a complete jackass, but yet Vince kept the belt on him, or was going to put the belt on him, make him the champion, even though this guy was a train wreck at this time. He was a known drug abuser. He was just a mess, and I was really surprised that they would want to put the belt on him, because if you look back in history, another great wrestler named Jake the Snake, who to me should have had a run with the championship, wasn't allowed the title because of his off the screen problems with alcohol and stuff like that. So I was surprised.
Shawn, for as good as he was, I think he had way too many problems to be the world champion. So briefly walk. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab my glass of water that's just right over there. But just kind of walk through the lead up to the match.
Well, as I say, I know that there was a lot of back and forth about the two. I know that leading up to that was, earlier that year, Shawn came into the year as the champion from the Royal Rumble. So Shawn gets hurt, and I think this is about the time when Brett got his first run with the belt. Brett, he wins that, I believe it was WWE In-House 13. He wins the Fatal 4-Way because, Shawn had to vacate the championship. And then it was kind of back and forth most of the year. I think Sid held it a couple of times. Taker Joe held it. And then Shawn won it. But then Brett won it back.
Well, the thing, what I wanted to talk about was what happened in the locker room between Brett and Shawn. Not a Survivor Series.
Yeah.
They had a pull apart.
Well, I think afterwards, they had a pull apart, and Vince got punched in the face.
No. Before all of that, before this match happened, there was an issue with Brett and Shawn where they were in the locker room, and they Brett said hey to Shawn or something, and what?
Was this where he pulled his hair out?
Yes.
This time?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that they didn't even have a finish yet. Normally, they have the finishes already set in place prior to the pay-per-view, so they usually know what it is. And most of them will have run crews in the arena without anybody there, so they'll know exactly where their spots are or whatever.
By the way, folks, this video tonight is not sponsored by Pepsi, but if they still want to sponsor me in the show, please do. It's sponsored by water.
There you go.
So drink plenty of water, folks. It's good for you.
Right.
No, I was talking about their when Brett ripped out Shawn's hair, but there was a quote. I remember there was a quote, and the quote was Brett said, "I'm willing to put you over to Shawn," and Shawn said, "I appreciate that, but I'm not willing to put you over." And
I think it was, yeah.
That didn't sit well with me.
Well, Shawn was very selfish. He was a very selfish guy. He just wanted the championship. He wanted that belt. And, he was the kind of guy that would bitch and moan and cry if he didn't get his way at that period of time. You know,
Sean at this time was a prick, like I've said.
Real wishy-washy. You know, Jim talked the other day on a podcast about how when wrestlers work a program, and he used Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair together, and they were talking about how, you know, they got to be on the same page, and they've got to be willing to work together to make it work. And you've got to be able to trust who you're working with. And I think Brett couldn't trust Sean, not one bit. It didn't matter what Sean was saying. He knew that he was going to get screwed regardless. So I think he knew. He just didn't know how it was going to happen. I don't know. You know, I hate what happened to Brett. But, at the same time,
here's my thing. I'm not saying Vince was right for what he did. I'm not saying that. But I'm also not going to sit here and say Brett is 100% innocent.
Yeah. Because he's not in it. No. Back then, Brett was an asshole too. So,
yeah. Brett was going from making $1.5 million a year to making $2.5 million a year, and he expected us to feel sorry for him because he got screwed out of the championship. No, here's what happened. Here's what happened, folks. Brett was told to drop the championship to somebody. Okay, he was told, "Hey, we need you to drop the title to Sean." Brett said, "No, I'm not going to do it." WWE said, "Yeah, you are. One way or another, we're going to take that belt off of you. So you either do it the right way or we'll do it our way." Brett said, "No, I'm not going to do it I'm not going to do it my way or the right way." So Vince said, "Okay, we're going to do it our way." And they did. Yeah. And you know what? I can't be mad at WWE for that. They had to do what they had to do to protect their company.
No. The only thing because Vince is a businessman and he's got to do what's best for business. And he's got to not let his belt be tarnished. He couldn't afford to let Brett walk out of there with that belt taken to WCW. That would have been that would have been bad.
That would have hurt so hard.
But the one thing I wish would have happened is, normally you have a locker room general or a locker room judge, or that you got one of the wrestlers back there that usually will step up when there's nonsense going on. And I was expecting Taker to step in and allow Brett to drop the belt to Taker, and then Taker could have dropped the belt to Sean.
I think even Taker knew at that time they wanted him to drop it to Sean, so let him drop it to Sean. Yeah. I think even Taker understood that.
But I do think that Brett's greed got to him because you're making $1.5 million a year. Damn, man. That's a lot of money. That's more than a lot of people. So to me, it's plain greed. Mm-hmm. He really wasn't wrestling that many matches a year. Not like they used to do.
Another thing that happened in 1997, as I'm going to click out of this photo now because we're done with it. Another thing that happened in 1997 was the rise of the NWO. Now, I know what everybody's thinking. NWO debuted in 96. I understand that, but 1997 is really the year of the NWO.
Well, you remember their first pay-per-view sold out was in January, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
So that was a straight NWO pay-per-view, and I remember because I saw the pay-per-view. It went bad. NWO, one of the greatest gimmicks to me of all time. The WWE never did anything quite on the scale of the NWO, and Vince trying to bring them back and inject the lethal poison. It was just a complete flop when they tried to do it the second time. Because you couldn't. You'll never have a heel turn of the magnitude that Hulk had at Bash at the Beach. You'll never see that again.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I had to fix the color of my lights. The blue wasn't fitting really well, so I just turned it to white, and it works just fine. NWO to me, it was great when it was Hall, Nash, and Hogan, and you can even throw in Eric Bischoff and the Giant for security. Right. When they started letting in random dudes like Buff Bagwell and Conan and Six Pack or whatever his name was, and Mr. Perfect, it was like, okay, let's calm it down a little bit.
That was my one drawback for the program was they were letting too many people come in. But I'll tell you this, man. that whole storyline drew so much heat. I can't tell you how angry and pissed I would be. Every Raw would go off, not Raw, but every Nitro would go off, and my favorite guys were getting beat down. And I was wanting retribution so bad.
Yeah. There was too many. I don't. Have you ever watched Adult Swim?
Right.
You remember that? Have you ever watched that show, Adult Swim? Or not show, but that channel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really great commercial on there that sums up the NWO perfectly. Too many cooks.
Right.
It's just that. Have you ever seen that one? It's just a TV intro that keeps
Right.
on going and going and going.
Well, the way they set it up when they teased Hall and Nash, when they did the whole bit, when they were attacking Bischoff, and I think if they would have limited it to like Hulk, Hall and Nash, Bischoff, and maybe one or two more, and let it run that way, I think that would have been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole Sting angle with him going quiet, becoming the Crow Sting, was just fantastic.
After 1998, the NWO should have been done. They should have died after 98.
And I remember Halloween Havoc when he dropped down from the Raptors and attacked NWO for the first time. Dusty was on color. It was just fantastic. I still, if you ever get a chance, pull up that. I think it was Halloween Havoc of '97. Pull that one up and listen to the end because it was Hulk Hogan versus. I'm trying to remember who. Or when was it? Well, I think it was when Rodman. Rodman was
Hang
there
on,
on
I will
his
look
side.
this up right now. I'm looking this up on my phone, folks.
Yeah.
So give me 1 second here.
This is when Sting dropped from the rafters for the first time.
At Halloween Havoc 97?
I think it was '97. Yeah. You might be able to find it with Dennis. It's the pay per view that Dennis Rodman was. Rodman was part of the NWO.
Was it Piper in a cage?
Rodman's. No, I don't think it was Piper. No. I remember Hogan coming out there and Sting attacked Hogan in the ring after the match, but
You said this was Rodman's debut?
He beat up Holler Nash because I think Holler Nash had a tag match against Macho Man and somebody else.
You said that.
And then Sting showed up.
You said this was his big debut.
This was when he first finally attacked NWO.
No, Rodman.
Oh yeah, this was his pay-per-view debut.
Okay, well then, uncensored.
I'm trying to think.
Was it uncensored?
It was either uncensored. Maybe it was.
Hang on. I'll tell you. Hogan's opponent. Was Hogan in a team match in this main event?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Then it was at uncensored
and then he talked
97.
Hogan back into the ring. He coaxes Hogan back into the ring, and then he attacks Hogan and lays him out.
Yeah. It was Team NWO, which was Hogan, Savage, Nash, and Hull, and Dennis Rodman was with them. They defeated Team Piper, which is Piper, Benoit, Steve McMichael, and Jeff Jarrett, and Team WCW, which was Luger the Giant and Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
Okay. We got it, ladies and gentlemen. It was uncensored, yeah.
And then Carl Malone was in there too, because Carl Malone was DDP. Carl Malone was the Utah Jazz player.
That was another good one. That was another good feud. Rodman and Hogan versus Malone and Page. That was another good one. I had a VHS tape. It was Diamond Dallas Page, Feel the Bang. It was one of those WWE Superstar videos. I don't know if you remember those at all. I had a whole bunch of them. One of them was that, and he did talk about teaming up with Carl Malone on that one. So, yeah, and
I know for me there was a period of time when I was in the military. I missed some years. I would say 93, maybe through 95. I kind of missed out on some of the wrestling just because I was overseas and stuff. We couldn't get it, but yeah, no.
Well, thank you for your service, first of all.
Oh, thank you. NWO to me has to be the greatest gimmick of all time. I mean, with as many good storylines as the WWF has had, and they've had some great ones, you can't beat what the WCW did in a 2-year span with NWO. Other than, like I said, the mistake for them was having too many people at the end too. When they split it up, and it was red versus black. That was stupid.
That was Wolfpack. I don't think that the Wolfpack was necessary.
It got to be hokey, man, and then they put the title on Booker, and by then the whole championship was watered down, and I was just like, man, I know there was one feud, and I don't know if you remember this feud at all. You may not, but there's a wrestler named by the name of Vampiro.
I've heard of Vampiro.
He had a feud with Sting. It was one of the best I've ever seen.
With who? With Sting?
Sting. Yeah.
I think I've seen. I think I've seen
Sting
some
was
of
in his
that
black
stuff.
makeup, and Vampiro went over on him a couple of times. I think they had 3 matches.
I think
One
I've
of them
seen
was
some of those.
blood match.
Wasn't there? But didn't they have a match where like one of them fell off of the Titantron?
Yeah, it was brutal. They had some great matches because Vampiro was a really, really good wrestler, and he was kind of a creepy dude,
Yeah, I remember Vampiro. I remember him.
But yeah, no, that was one of the I mentioned to you before about the Lost feuds. The people that remember. Yeah, now the Vampiro Sting feud had some great matches. There were some that were kind of dark, but it was it was different. And he was wearing his white black makeup, so he was into that pro gimmick. I think this was more post NWO before the show ended. They had a night. I mean, even when the NWO thing kind of panned out, they had some nice stuff at the end. Storyline.
Another thing that happened in 1997, speaking of black and white, was the rise of Crow Sting. Now, again, I know Crow Sting came out in 96, but 97 is when we got to see him really get elevated, so to speak.
Right.
And I'm going to talk about one specific match, Starrcade 1997.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't realize how much went into this match, how much drama there was behind the scenes and everything, until I listened to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. And he was discussing what happened, and he said that they almost didn't have Sting win the championship that night. But they had to because they had to have the good guy prevail.
Right. And that match with Hogan, did you notice? I'm sure you've gone back and looked at it. Did you notice they counted to 3 when Hogan's shoulders were even down?
That was one of the things that Bischoff talked about because they said there was a fast count, for Sting. It was a fast count for Sting, and Bischoff said, "Yeah, but that kind of stuff happens all the time, and I nobody got fired over it, nobody got mad over it, whatever." And Conrad calls him out. He goes, "Wait," because I guess he didn't want to give Sting a championship because he didn't have a tan and he didn't look good or whatever physically. Like he didn't look like.
Well, I mean, a lot older, of course. He wasn't wrestling as many matches as he was.
Right. He wasn't as buff as he normally would have been, and for that reason, they almost said, "No, we're not going to give him the belt." Right. And Conrad said, "Wait. So you got mad because the guy didn't have a tan, but you didn't get mad when the referee gave the fast count? Are you kidding me?" And a whole argument was made. Go listen to that episode. It's a very good episode.
But who does that remind you of, though? Who else do you think would act like that?
Vince.
Vince McMahon. Vince would act stupid like that. He liked big old buff guys.
Vince is the kind of guy to get pissed off and almost fire
how about
a
when
guy.
they screwed Lex Luger? How about when they screwed Luger out of getting a chance with the belt?
Oh, man.
Vince was high on Luger for a while, and the next thing you know, he pulled the whole storyline on him, and I thought that was rotten, man.
Yeah.
I know Luger wasn't the greatest on promo, but he was a great talent in the ring.
Yeah. There was a lot of great world champions in WCW. They had Sting. You mentioned Luger. Scott Steiner only had one title reign.
Yeah.
Booker T had how many title reigns? I can't remember how many reigns he had in WCW.
I think he had 3. I think he was champion 3 times.
Okay. And one of those times, he got to win it out of a box.
And DDP was a champion, I think, twice. I think he was twice. I know he had a feud with Kevin Nash, didn't he? Or no, he had a feud with Booker. I'm trying to remember. There was a whole period of time, though, after all the NWO stuff, that some of that I missed.
Well, that's a separate year. This is about 97.
Yeah.
And something else that happened in 1997 was the rise of the D-Generation X and the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And
don't forget Vince's heel turn at Survivor Series.
Yeah, the night after Brett screwed Brett.
That's when they created Mr. McMahon. Yeah.
Brett screwed Brett. A lot of big things happened in '97.
That's also the year. That's also the year that Psycho Sid was the champion. He was champion twice.
Do you think without the Generation X that there's an Attitude Era?
Nah, no. I think they kicked it off.
I think so too. I think
that was the Generation X is perfect. I love that. I love the theme. I like that whole. I mean, I wasn't a huge Triple H fan, but the guy was a great heel.
Yes,
and that was a great heel group.
Absolutely.
And they had the right people running that thing. I mean, it was just because that's really how they really were behind the scenes.
Yeah. That's again, it's real life kind of playing into storyline. It kind of blends that a little bit, and I think that WWE needs that today.
I prefer DX in a heel role and not a face.
I don't know. I liked their run in 2006, 2007. Yeah. That was entertaining. But the Attitude Era, I think there's 2 big things that capped that off, and that was the D-Generation X, but that one also was who else but Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, those were Attitude Era goes hand in hand with DX and Stone Cold. And 97 saw the rise of all of that stuff. And, man, DX is... I love DX. I really did. They were really... When you go back and you watch them, they were so fun and entertaining. And they were bad guys. And you could... But one of my favorite segments of all time, and it still gets quoted a lot in my house, is the DX conference when Shawn Michaels ends it with, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman. As a matter of fact, I was up all night." And I was just like, oh. And see, that's still good. That whole segment still gets quoted to this day in my house. It's hilarious.
It was just how they were allowed to play off the cuff.
Yeah.
Which is something that you're missing now.
And the best part is, USA Network was like, "Oh, please do." That was hilarious. Oh, yeah. That was fantastic. Take the cuffs off of you guys. Go ahead. Go off.
To me, Attitude Era was the greatest era of the WWF ever. I mean, because I think that's the year you had Kane come in. Mm-hmm. That's when he started that program with Undertaker. He just had a lot of great feuds and back and forth and Rock Mankind and all. I mean, just some great stuff.
I would say that Ruthless Aggression was in ring work wise, like wrestling wise, it was a better year, better era. Because Attitude Era, see, that's the thing that I think a lot of people tend to forget is the Attitude Era. As great as it was, as fondly as it's remembered, there wasn't many great matches. Yeah, you had Bret and Shawn, okay, but there wasn't. It wasn't about the wrestling. It was about the storylines. It was about the segments. It was about the promos. It was about the characters.
Well, you had such a shift because I came up during the golden age of WWF, and that was when Hogan was champion. And Hogan was champion for like 5 or 6 years without losing the belt. Mm-hmm. But they had guys like King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd and Tito Santana, and just a lot of. You saw more wrestling matches, and you didn't see guys with true finishers. You had finishes, but you didn't have Orndorff had a pile driver, Hogan had a leg drop, but you didn't see a lot the true finishing style of wrestling like you see now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, a finisher was a big deal back then.
Right.
So,
it's a finish. It was a finisher. A finisher was a finisher. Right. Once it was was finished.
You're not seeing, Roman Reigns hit the guy the other night with was it 4 Superman punches that he kicked out on every one of them. You didn't see that back then. You got hit with the finisher, you were down. And if you got up, you kicked out, you got your ass kicked in the back once they got in the back.
Absolutely, and I think that's kind of what's hurting pro wrestling is that finishers are not finishers.
Internet.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Right? I know, Dave Meltzer, man. And I used to respect Dave, man. But, Dave's kind of off his rocker, and, when Corny's talking wrestling, I'm cool, but, Corny goes off on these rants where, a lot of his liberal left leaning comes out, and I don't really care for that, but, the nostalgia that he brings is incredible. I'd love to see Corny come back and be a booker somewhere, whether it's AEW. But he'll never go to WWE again, I can say that.
Bro, the day AEW goes, or the day that Cornette goes to AEW is the day that Vince steps down from WWE.
Now, I do say that Corny's ideas are antiquated now. And, I've texted and I've emailed Brian Last before, and I've told him, hey, look, I grew up with Corny as a manager and stuff, and I watched everything he did. Greatest manager ever, in my opinion. Just unbelievable promo. But it's passed him by. The way wrestling is now, it'll never be like it was when he was around. And it's just because you've had this evolution of wrestling, especially with the amount of money that's in wrestling now. And the fact that, thank you, Vince, for destroying the territories. But, I think if we still had the territories, you'd have traditional wrestling still around. But, Corny, again, like I said, he's in a time ball. He's stuck in another spot. And so he, complains a lot. I do think that these wrestlers that he gives a hard time to, he needs to lighten up. Some of these guys are decent. They're good. I mean, they may have done some stupid shit in other promotions, but technically, I think they're sound, I know that me and you probably disagree on Kenny Omega.
Was that you that commented, stop the hate on Omega? Was that you?
Yes, that was me, man. Listen, I saw Omega stuff in New Japan, and the dude's legit. Now, I don't care for him wrestling a girl or a sex doll. I think that was stupid.
Not just a girl, a 9-year-old girl.
But if you think about it, in his matches, man, he's got some solid spots, man. He's got this thing that they call the V-trigger, that knee shot, man, and the dragon suplex, and the guy can do it. I mean, he can, I think he's technically sound in the ring. I think, a lot of people don't want to say that he's this present-day Bret Hart. I do. I think he is. I think he's skilled enough. I think he lacks, some ability promo-wise, but,
hang on. I have to stop you right then and there.
Yeah,
because I have to stop you right then and there. Because there was a massive argument this past Sunday night on the podcast.
Yeah.
The Review Survivor Series. There was a massive argument about if Bret Hart was better than Randy Orton. I said no. I said Randy's better than Bret. I said Randy Orton is better than Bret Hart. Hang on.
Right.
Because you just sat there and you just said Kenny Omega is this generation's Bret Hart.
Yep.
Man, Ron Parson, I hope you're watching this video, buddy. And if you are, please, I implore you, drive to Jonathan's house and beat his ass for that comment. Please, I am going to incite violence here because Kenny Omega is nowhere near Bret Hart's level or league.
Now, I think when it comes to actual wrestling style, of course, he learned from his dad. He learned in the, in the chamber, whatever they called it.
The dungeon.
Yeah. But now, let's be fair now. Bret only wrestled in one promotion, all right, for the longest time, WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a trained wrestler. Omega's been in how many different promotions? He succeeded in all of them. he's been high level. These guys would have never pushed him if he didn't have talent. The guy can tell a story, and he can perform. And I think that is, you got to have that. To me, Brett was a boring wrestler. Not saying that he's not talented. I thought he was a very boring wrestler. His matches were boring as shit. I think he was a better WF wrestler when he was a tag team with Jim the Anvil, and they held those tag belts for forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, send your hate comments down to Jonathan in the comments down below. Send it all to him. This is all him. Give him all the hate. Give him all the
yeah, no. I've never been a real fan of his. And I've never been a real fan of Shawn Michaels. I mean, I've liked some of his matches, but I mean, gosh, the match that he had, the submission match that he had in '97 with Austin was a good one.
Oh my God, that was fantastic. That was another. That was another match.
But,
yes.
But again, Austin by far is 100 times better than Bret Hart.
Now, hey, the Hollywood backlot. No, that didn't take place in '97, did it? The Goldust Piper Hollywood backlot.
No, the submission match was at WrestleMania 13 in '97. That was, I think it was the one that went on before, because the main event was Undertaker and Psycho Sid.
But let's be real here for a second. Nobody really talks about Undertaker versus Sid.
Yeah.
So I think the main event was really Austin Brett. And that match was phenomenal. Everybody, if you haven't seen that match, go out of your way to check that out. It's awesome. One more thing about '97, and I'll let you get out of here, Jonathan, because I know you got to go to work. Yep. What was ECW? ECW, we should talk about this. ECW invaded WWE.
Yep.
Or WWF back in February of 1987. And the cool thing is that WWF and ECW had a working relationship.
ECW was fantastic.
Yeah.
And if Paul Heyman wasn't running it, it would have survived.
And I love those invasion angles that they did, especially at the In Your House pay-per-view. I don't know if the In Your House ECW invasion, that took place in '97, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. And
you look at the talent they had. Shane Douglas, just incredible. I mean,
they had Tommy Dreamer. They had just incredible. They had
the Sandman. Sabu. I mean,
RVD.
When I used to watch them, they would come on late here. I'd see them like at midnight.
I don't know if Denver ever got ECW on their television sets here.
But I think the reason why they started having that whole thing with the WWE is because Paul Heyman has been known to be the worst businessman ever.
Oh my God, yes.
So I think he was trying to finagle some deal I think that's why WWE eventually bought him out, was to help him pay them wrestlers, man, because he didn't have no money. That's one of the reasons why it floundered. But that arena they had all our matches in up there in Pennsylvania, it's just incredible.
At the Bingo Hall.
How tight it was and stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought those were great matches.
And Jim Cornette and Jerry Lawler made appearances there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell this story and then I'll end the show right here. But there was a story that Bubba Ray told about Paul Heyman, just to show you how he worked as a businessman, where Paul would give off numbers or whatever to certain people to get on a plane ticket, right? Or to get a plane ticket. Or to even to mail something. And Bubba asked Paul, hey, what's the address for this? Or whatever. What's the P.O. box number for this? And Paul would respond, it's 867-5309-35267, right? And Bubba, I can't remember the exact number. I'm giving a random number. But Bubba goes, Paul, that's one too many numbers. And Paul responds, just knock the last one off. Really? He would have wrestlers fake deaths so that they could get free plane tickets.
Yeah.
Like Paul, as much as you want to say Paul is a bad businessman, he was really good at thinking on the fly.
Oh yeah.
Because I can't really think of anybody else that would say, "Oh, you need a plane ticket and you need it now." You know what? If you need it for free, just go ahead and tell them your mother died, your father died, your brother died, whatever. Tell me the death of the family.
Creatively, Heyman's a genius. I mean, he's a creative genius, you know. But you know, a lot of that, all those years when he started ECW, if I remember right, he worked a lot of that stuff out of his mom's basement,
Mm-hmm.
where he had his office and stuff, and he had so many great ideas. He never could land a good sponsor man to help sponsor them.
And
That was half the problem.
And his dad was a lawyer.
That was, you know.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was our review of the year 1997. Next week Tuesday.
You got it.
Next week Tuesday, we're going to cover the year. We just think of these years on the fly, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't really discuss this. So we're kind of just going off. So next year, or next week, not next year, but next week, we're going to cover the year 2005.
Fantastic.
So 2005 was a big year in wrestling as well. We'll get into all of that stuff next week. But hey, if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we upload new content. Once again, I upload new content weekly. And if you don't subscribe, Jonathan,
stink face.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this podcast. We out of here.
All right, man. Have a good one, bud.
You too, bud.